They told him security was the one job where you could stay invisible. Ethan Carter believed it, right up until the night someone heard him singing. He didn't know the woman standing in the shadow of the executive suite could cost him everything he'd been hiding behind. He didn't know she'd already decided to burn her own career down to save his. And he had no idea that one lullaby, sung through static on a discount phone, would unravel the lie that kept them both safe, that work and survival were the same thing. Stay with me until the end. Hit like and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Ethan Carter checked the clock on his phone, 11:43 p.m., another 17 minutes before his rounds. He leaned back in the plastic swivel chair behind the front security desk and rubbed his eyes. The lobby of the Pembroke Tower stretched out in front of him. Marble floors, steel beams, a fountain no one turned off at night that trickled like a broken faucet. 42 stories of glass and ambition, and he was paid to make sure none of it caught fire or got robbed while everyone else slept. The building smelled like industrial cleaner and recycled air. During the day, it was full of noise, footsteps on marble, elevator chimes, conversations bleeding together into a hum of productivity. At night, it was a mausoleum, the kind of quiet that made you aware of your own breathing. Ethan didn't mind the quiet. He preferred it. He picked up his phone again. The screen showed a cracked photo of a little girl with dark curls and gap teeth, holding a stuffed giraffe nearly as tall as she was. Mia, 6 years old, smart as hell, stubborn as concrete. He hit dial. It rang 3 times before a sleepy voice answered. "Daddy? Hey, Bug, you awake?" "Mm-hmm." Mia yawned into the phone. "Mrs. Alvarez says I have to stay in bed." "Mrs. Alvarez is right. But I'm not tired." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." Ethan smiled. "You yawned twice already." "That doesn't count." "It does." There was a pause. He could hear her shifting under the covers, the rustle of cotton sheets and the stuffed giraffe she refused to sleep without. "Sing me the song," she said finally. He glanced around the empty lobby. No one ever came through this late. The elevators were locked after 10 unless you had executive clearance. The building was a tomb with heating. "You sure? You said it was for babies." "I changed my mind." Ethan closed his eyes and started humming, low and steady, the way his wife used to. Then he let the words come, soft and unpolished. "Hush now, don't you cry. The stars are watching from the sky." He didn't have a great voice, never had, but Mia didn't care. She never did. He heard her breathing slow on the other end, little huffs of air against the receiver. "Close your eyes and drift away. I'll be here when comes the day." He kept going until he heard nothing but silence. Then he waited another 30 seconds, just to be sure. "Love you, Bug," he whispered. He ended the call and set the phone down. That's when he noticed her. She was standing near the fountain, halfway between the elevator bank and the front desk. A woman in a charcoal blazer and fitted pants, arms crossed, watching him like he'd just performed surgery in the middle of a grocery store. Ethan straightened. "Evening. Can I help you?" She didn't answer right away, just stared. "You need me to call an elevator?" "No." Her voice was measured, controlled. "I was working late. I heard singing." His stomach dropped. "Yeah, sorry. I thought I was alone." "You were singing to someone." "My daughter. She can't sleep without it." The woman tilted her head slightly, and for a second Ethan thought she might reprimand him, tell him personal calls weren't allowed on shift. Write him up. Instead she said, "That's kind of you." Then she turned and walked back toward the elevators without another word. Ethan sat there, heart still thumping, watching her disappear into the steel doors. He didn't even know her name. By the time Ethan got home at 6:47 a.m., Mia was already awake. She was sitting at the kitchen table in her pajamas, coloring a picture of what appeared to be a dragon eating a school bus. Mrs. Alvarez, the neighbor who watched her overnight, was pouring orange juice into a plastic cup with cartoon pandas on it. "Morning, Mr. Carter," Mrs. Alvarez said. She was 62, round-faced, and the only reason Ethan's life functioned at all. She woke up at 6:30, wouldn't go back to sleep. "I'm not tired," Mia announced without looking up from her drawing. Ethan dropped his keys on the counter. "You were tired at midnight." "That was a long time ago." Mrs. Alvarez handed him a cup of coffee. "She ate cereal. I'll be back tonight at 10. "Thank you." She patted his arm on the way out. You look exhausted. I'm fine. You're not, but you will be. The door clicked shut. Ethan sat down across from Mia and watched her color. She was using green for the dragon's teeth. He didn't correct her. What's the bus doing? Going to school. And the dragon? Eating it. Why? She shrugged. Because it's hungry. Ethan sipped his coffee. It was burnt. He drank it anyway. Mrs. Alvarez says I can't have candy for breakfast. Mrs. Alvarez is smart. But you let me have pancakes. Pancakes aren't candy. They taste like candy. That's because I put too much syrup on them. Mia grinned. Yeah. He ruffled her hair. Go get dressed. I'll make eggs. I don't like eggs. You liked them last week. That was different eggs. They're the same eggs. No, they're not. He didn't argue. He just stood up and opened the fridge. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table. The paint was peeling in the corners. The radiator clanked at night. The window in Mia's room didn't lock properly, so Ethan had wedged a wooden dowel in the frame. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. He cracked 3 eggs into a pan and watched them sizzle. Mia hummed to herself at the table, coloring in the sky around the dragon. She'd chosen purple. He didn't ask why. Daddy? Yeah? Are you sad? The question caught him off guard. Why would I be sad? You look sad sometimes. I'm just tired. That's what you always say. Ethan flipped the eggs. Because it's always true. Mia set down her crayon. Mrs. Alvarez says it's okay to be sad. Mrs. Alvarez is right. But you're not sad? Not right now. She studied him for a moment, then went back to coloring. Ethan slid the eggs onto a plate and set it in front of her. She poked at them with her fork. These are the wrong eggs, she said. Eat them anyway. She sighed, but she ate them. The night shift was supposed to be temporary. That's what Ethan told himself when he took the job 3 years ago. Just until he got back on his feet. Just until Mia started school. Just until he figured out what the hell came next. Before the accident, he'd worked in corporate finance. Mid-level analyst at a private equity firm called Creston Equity. Decent salary, decent hours, decent future. He wasn't brilliant, but he was steady. He knew how to read risk, how to spot the holes in a deal before someone else did, how to turn raw data into something that made sense. He liked the work. It was clean, predictable. You looked at numbers, found patterns, made recommendations. No one got hurt. No one died. Then Sarah died. Car accident. Black ice on Lakeshore Drive. She was on her way to pick Mia up from daycare. The other driver walked away with a bruised rib. Sarah didn't walk away at all. Ethan took leave. Then he took more leave. Then he stopped going back. The firm was understanding at first, sent flowers, sent emails, told him to take all the time he needed, but time didn't fix anything. It just made the hole deeper. After 6 months, they called him in for a meeting. His manager, a guy named Derek who wore expensive suits and talked like a motivational speaker, sat him down in a conference room and asked how he was doing. Ethan said he was fine. Derek said he didn't look fine. Ethan said he'd be back soon. Derek said they needed to fill the position. Ethan said he understood. And that was it. 3 years of work, gone in a 15-minute conversation. He didn't blame them. He wouldn't have kept him either. So he sold the condo in Lincoln Park, moved into a 2-bedroom in Bridgeport, found a job that didn't require him to think too hard or feel too much. Night security paid $11 an hour, enough to cover rent, Mrs. Alvarez, and Mia's after-school program. It wasn't a career. It was survival. And survival, he'd learned, didn't leave room for ambition. Lila Monroe was 29 and already burning out. She'd spent the last 6 years clawing her way up through Pembroke Industries' corporate development division, and she was good at it. Everyone said so. She closed deals faster than analysts twice her age. She knew how to work a boardroom, how to read the silent language of power, how to make herself indispensable without making herself a target. But lately, she'd started to notice the edges. The way her boss smiled when he lied. The way her colleagues spoke about people in departments they'd never met, like they were line items instead of lives. The way the company measured success exclusively in quarters and percentage points, as if the world reset every 90 days. She used to think that was just business. Now she wasn't so sure. Tonight she was finishing a report on workforce optimization. That's what they called it. Optimization, like people were code that needed debugging. The plan was simple. Replace the night security staff with AI-driven surveillance systems, facial recognition, motion sensors, automated alerts. It would save the company $800,000 a year. Lila had drafted the first memo herself. She looked at the document on her screen now, cursor blinking at the end of the last sentence. Implementation timeline, Q1 rollout. Staff terminations effective March 1st. She thought about the man at the front desk, the one who sang to his daughter. She thought about how he'd looked when she walked up, startled, embarrassed, like he'd been caught doing something wrong. She thought about how he'd smiled when he said, "Love you," bug into the phone. She closed the laptop, then she opened it again. She pulled up the employee directory and searched. Night security. 3 names. Ethan Carter, 32. Hired February 2022. No prior disciplinary record. Marcus Wells, 47. Hired August 2019. Jennifer Tran, 29. Hired January 2023. Lila clicked on Ethan's profile. There wasn't much there. High school diploma. No college degree. Previous employer, Creston Equity Group. She frowned. Creston was a major firm. Why would someone go from private equity to night security? She opened a new tab and pulled up LinkedIn. Ethan Carter, former financial analyst at Creston Equity Group. 2018 to 2021. No updates since then. No new positions. Just a blank profile frozen in time. Lila stared at the screen for a long time. Then she stood up, grabbed her coat, and left. The next night, Ethan was halfway through his rounds when he saw her again. She was sitting in the atrium on the 3rd floor, legs crossed, laptop open on the bench beside her. No one ever came up here this late. It was just glass walls and decorative plants no one watered. The atrium was supposed to be a statement piece. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline, polished concrete floors, geometric planters filled with succulents that somehow stayed alive despite total neglect. During the day, people held meetings here. At night, it was abandoned. "Evening," Ethan said as he passed. She looked up. "Hi." He kept walking. "Wait." He stopped, turned. "Something wrong?" "No, She closed the laptop. "Do you work here every night?" "Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday if they're short." "And you have a daughter?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yeah." "How old?" 6. "That's young." "It is." Lila stood. She was tall, 5'9", maybe 5'10". She had the kind of posture that came from years of being told to sit up straight. Her hair was dark, pulled back in a low ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry except a simple watch. "I'm Lila," she said. "I work upstairs. Executive development." "Ethan." "I know." That surprised him. "You looked me up?" "I was curious." "About what?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at him like she was solving a puzzle. "You used to work in finance," she said. Ethan's chest went cold. "How do you know that?" "Your resume's in the system. You were an analyst at Creston Equity." "That was a long time ago." 3 years. "Like I said, long time." Lila took a step closer. "Why'd you leave?" "Personal reasons." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." They stood there in silence. The plants cast strange shadows across the tile. Somewhere below, the fountain trickled. The city glowed through the windows, a grid of light stretching out toward the lake. "You're too smart for this job," Lila said. Ethan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "You don't believe that." "I do." "Then why do you look so tired?" He met her eyes. "Because I am." Lila nodded slowly. Then she picked up her laptop. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night." She walked toward the elevator. Ethan watched her go. He didn't know why she cared, but something about the way she looked at him made him feel like he'd been seen for the first time in years, and he wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. The following Monday, Lila sat in a conference room on the 41st floor while her boss, Gregory Haynes, walked the senior leadership team through the optimization plan. Gregory was 52, silver-haired, and had the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. He'd been with Pembroke for 15 years, climbing steadily through operations and into executive leadership. He was smart, ruthless, and completely convinced that efficiency was the only metric that mattered. "We're looking at full automation by April," Gregory said, clicking through the slides. Each one was a study in corporate minimalism, clean fonts, muted colors, bullet points that reduced human lives to cost savings. No lapses in coverage, lower liability, higher efficiency. "What about severance?" someone asked. It was Martin Chen, VP of Human Resources. He always asked about severance. Standard package, 2 weeks per year of service. Lila did the math in her head. Ethan had been there 3 years. That was 6 weeks. 42 days to find another job, another shift, another way to keep his kid fed. "Any pushback from the union?" another voice asked. Caroline Dryden, Chief Operating Officer. Sharp eyes, sharper instincts. "They're non-union," Gregory said. "Clean exit." Lila's stomach turned. "Questions?" Gregory looked around the table. No one spoke. "Great. Let's move forward." Gregory closed his laptop. "Monroe, I'll need the implementation timeline finalized by Wednesday." Lila nodded. "I'll have it ready." The meeting ended. People filed out, already moving on to the next agenda item, the next optimization, the next quarter. Lila stayed in her seat. Gregory noticed. "Something on your mind, Monroe?" She looked up. "How many people are we cutting?" 12. 12 people. 12 positions. Same thing. Gregory frowned. "You wrote the memo, Lila. What's the issue?" "I wrote it. I didn't say I liked it." "You don't have to like it. You just have to execute it." "And if I don't?" He leaned against the table. "Then someone else will. And you'll be remembered as the person who couldn't close." Lila stood, noted. She walked out before he could say anything else. I could see. That night, Ethan's phone rang at 11:52 p.m. "Daddy? Hey, Bug." "I had a bad dream." His hand tightened on the phone. "What about?" "You weren't there." His throat tightened. "I'm here now." "But you weren't in the dream." "Dreams aren't real, Mia." "They feel real." "I know." He could hear her breathing on the other end, quick and shallow. She was scared. "Sing the song," she said. Ethan looked around the empty lobby, the fountain, the steel, the silence. "Okay," he said softly. He started humming. The melody was simple, almost childish. Sarah had sung it to Mia when she was a baby, back when the world still made sense. "Hush now, don't you cry." Upstairs, on the 38th floor, Lila stood by the window and listened to her own reflection. The city stretched out below, a circuit board of light and movement. Somewhere down there, people were living, fighting, surviving. She'd made up her mind. She just didn't know how to say it yet. 3 days later, the memo went out. Ethan saw it in his inbox at 10:47 p.m. Subject line, Workforce Transition Notification. He didn't open it right away. He just sat there staring at the screen, feeling the weight of inevitability settle over him like snow. When he finally clicked it, the words were clinical, professional, polite. Dear Mr. Carter, as part of Pembroke Industries' ongoing commitment to operational excellence, we are transitioning to automated monitoring systems across all facilities. Effective March 1st, your position will be eliminated. We appreciate your service and dedication. You will receive a severance package equivalent to 2 weeks of pay per year of service, totaling 6 weeks. Please contact Human Resources to schedule an exit interview. Sincerely, Pembroke Industries Human Resources Department. He read it twice. Then he set the phone down and stared at the fountain. 6 weeks of pay. That would cover rent for 2 months if he stretched it. Maybe 3 if he cut everything non-essential. Mrs. Alvarez. Mia's after-school program. Groceries that weren't rice and beans. He thought about calling someone, a friend, a former colleague, but he didn't have anyone left. He'd let those relationships dissolve years ago, too tired to maintain them, too buried in survival to care. He picked up his phone. Mia answered on the first ring. "Daddy?" "Hey, Bug. Are you okay?" He smiled, even though she couldn't see him. "Yeah, I'm okay." "You sound sad." I'm just tired. You're always tired. I know. There was a pause. Then, sing me the song. Ethan closed his eyes, and he sang. Hush now, don't you cry. The stars are watching from the sky. His voice cracked on the last line. He hoped she didn't notice. Lila found out the memo had been sent when she got a congratulatory email from Gregory. Well done. Clean execution. Let's debrief tomorrow. She stared at it for a full minute. Then she stood up, grabbed her coat, and headed for the elevator. She found Ethan at the front desk. He was sitting with his elbows on the counter, head in his hands. The lobby lights cast long shadows across the marble. The fountain trickled. You got the memo, she said. He looked up. His eyes were red. Yeah, I'm sorry. Why? You didn't write it. She didn't correct him. Ethan stood. I need to finish my shift. Ethan, I'm fine. You're not. He turned to face her, and for the first time she saw the anger underneath the exhaustion. What do you want me to say? He asked. That I'm mad? That I'm scared? That I don't know how I'm going to pay rent or keep my kid in school or explain to her why daddy doesn't have a job anymore? Lila said nothing. I can't afford to be mad, Ethan said quietly. So yeah, I'm fine. He walked past her toward the elevator bank, keycard in hand. He had to check the stairwells on floors 3, 7, and 12. It was part of the routine, pointless, but required. Lila stood there, alone in the lobby, listening to the fountain trickle. Then she went back upstairs. She opened her laptop, and she started writing. The next morning, Lila requested an emergency meeting with the executive board. Gregory found out 30 minutes before it started. He cornered her outside the boardroom, face flushed. What the hell are you doing? He asked. My job. Your job is to execute the plan, not question it. Then I'm doing it wrong. Lila, I have evidence the plan's flawed. If you don't want to hear it, fine, but they will. Gregory's face went red. You're making a mistake. Maybe. She walked into the room. 12 executives sat around a long table. Lila stood at the head of it, laptop open, pulse hammering. She could feel Gregory's eyes burning into the back of her head. Thank you for your time, she began. I'm here to present concerns regarding the workforce optimization plan currently set for Q1 implementation. Caroline Dryden, Chief Operating Officer, leaned forward. We approved this last week, Monroe. What's changed? The risk assessment, Lila said. We didn't run a full vulnerability analysis on the AI system. If it fails, we have no human backup. That's a liability exposure we can't afford. The system's been tested, someone else said. Robert Marsh, VP of Operations. In controlled environments, not in real-world scenarios. Then we test it. With what staff? We're cutting them all in 6 weeks. The room went quiet. Lila pulled up a document on the screen. I also reviewed the personnel files. 3 of the 12 employees we're terminating have specialized backgrounds we didn't account for. She clicked to the next slide. Ethan Carter, former financial analyst. Marcus Wells, former IT security specialist. Jennifer Tran, degree in criminal justice with cybersecurity certification. She let that sink in. We're not just cutting security guards. We're cutting talent we could be repositioning. Caroline narrowed her eyes. Why does this matter to you? Lila met her gaze. Because it's short-sighted. And because it's wrong. Gregory stood. This is insubordination. No, Caroline said, raising a hand. It's due diligence. She looked at Lila. How much time do you need to run a full assessment? 2 weeks. You have one. Lila nodded. Thank you. Gregory's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The meeting ended. Lila walked out, hands shaking. She'd just bought Ethan time. Now she had to figure out what to do with it. Ethan didn't find out about the delay until the following Monday. He got an email at 11:03 p.m. Subject line, Implementation Postponement. Dear Mr. Carter, due to ongoing operational review, the workforce transition has been postponed pending further assessment. Your position remains active until further notice. We will provide updates as they become available. Sincerely, Pembroke Industries Human Resources Department. He read it 3 times. Then he sat back in his chair and exhaled. It wasn't a reprieve. It was a delay. But it was something. He called Mia. Daddy? Hey, Bug. It's late. I know. I just wanted to hear your voice. Are you still sad? Ethan smiled. No, not tonight. Good. Mrs. Alvarez says you smile more when you're happy. Mrs. Alvarez is smart. I know. Go to sleep, Bug. Sing me the song first. Ethan looked around the empty lobby. The fountain. The marble. The steel beams stretching toward the ceiling like the ribs of some enormous beast. And for the first time in weeks, he sang without feeling like he was lying. Hush now, don't you cry. The stars are watching from the sky. Upstairs, Lila sat at her desk, staring at a file on Ethan Carter. She didn't know if she could stop the layoffs permanently, but she knew one thing. She wasn't going to let him disappear without a fight. The following night, Ethan saw Lila again. She was waiting by the front desk when he arrived for his shift at 9:58 p.m. She had her laptop bag slung over one shoulder, coat folded over her arm. She looked tired. Evening, Ethan said. Hi. He set his bag down behind the desk. You're here late again. I'm always here late. That makes two of us. Lila watched him log into the computer. You got the email? Yeah. How are you feeling? Ethan looked up. Confused mostly. Why? Because I don't know why it got delayed, and I don't know if it matters. It matters. How do you know? She didn't answer right away, just stood there, hands in her pockets, looking at him like she was deciding something. Because I'm the one who delayed it, she said finally. Ethan froze. What? I went to the board, told them the plan was flawed. Bought you some time. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Ethan stared at her. You don't even know me. I know enough. You know I sing to my kid. That's it. I know you're too smart for this job. I know you used to work in finance. I know you gave up a career to take care of your daughter. Lila took a step closer. And I know that cutting you is a mistake. Ethan shook his head. You're going to lose your job over this. Maybe. That's not worth it. I'll decide what's worth it. They stood there in silence. The fountain trickled. The elevator chimed somewhere in the distance. Why do you care? Ethan asked quietly. Lila hesitated. Then, because someone should. She picked up her bag and walked toward the elevator. Ethan watched her go. Thank you, he called after her. She stopped, turned. Don't thank me yet. The elevator doors closed. Ethan sat down at the desk and stared at the screen. For the first time in 3 years, he felt something other than exhaustion. He felt hope, and it terrified him. Over the next 3 days, Ethan tried not to think about what Lila had done. He went to work, made his rounds, answered Mia's calls at midnight, and told himself that nothing had really changed. The delay was temporary. The outcome was inevitable. Getting his hopes up would only make it worse when the axe finally fell, but he couldn't stop replaying the conversation. Because someone should. He didn't know what to do with that, didn't know how to process the fact that a woman he barely knew had risked her career for him. It felt too big, too much, like a debt he'd never be able to repay. On Thursday night, he found a note tucked under his keyboard. Meet me in the atrium at 1 a.m. We need to talk. L. Ethan stared at it for a long time. Then he folded it in half and slipped it into his pocket. At 12:58 a.m., he took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Lila was already there, sitting on the same bench as before. She had her laptop open, but she wasn't looking at it, just staring out the window at the city. You came, she said without turning around. You left a note. I wasn't sure you'd show. I'm here. Lila closed the laptop and stood. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. Her blazer was wrinkled. I need your help, she said. Ethan blinked. With what? The risk assessment. I told the board I'd run a full analysis on the AI system, but I don't have the background to do it properly. I need someone who understands financial modeling, risk projections, cost-benefit analysis. I haven't done that kind of work in 3 years. But you know how. Knowing how and being good at it are different things. You were good at it, Lila said. I read your file. You flagged 2 major deals at Creston that would have cost the firm millions. They promoted you because of it. Ethan's jaw tightened. That was a long time ago. 3 years isn't that long. It is when you've spent them doing nothing. You haven't been doing nothing. You've been raising your daughter. That's not the same thing. Lila took a step closer. Ethan, I can't do this alone. And if I don't deliver a solid report, they're going to push the layoffs through anyway. You'll lose your job. So will Marcus and Jennifer and 9 other people who don't deserve it. Why do you care so much? Because I'm the one who wrote the memo in the first place. Her voice cracked. I'm the one who turned 12 people into line items, and I can't live with that. Ethan stared at her. You didn't know. I should have. You're not responsible for this. Neither are you, but we're both stuck with it. They stood there in silence. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, the building was a tomb. What do you need me to do? Ethan asked finally. Lila exhaled. Help me build a model. Show the board what happens if the AI system fails, what it costs to fix, what it costs to replace, what it costs to rebuild trust with clients if something goes wrong. And if the model shows the AI system is better, then we accept it, but at least we'll know for sure. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. When do we start? Now. She handed him a flash drive. All the data's on here, system specs, cost projections, vendor contracts. I need you to run scenarios, best case, worst case, middle ground. How much time do I have? 5 days. That's not enough. It's all we've got. Ethan took the flash drive. It was small and black, the size of his thumb. It felt heavier than it should have. I'll see what I can do, he said. Lila nodded. Thank you. She picked up her laptop and headed for the elevator. Ethan watched her go. Then he looked down at the flash drive in his hand, and he wondered if he still remembered how to do this. The answer, he discovered over the next 72 hours, was yes, barely. He worked on it during his breaks, hunched over his phone in the security office, plugging numbers into spreadsheets he built from scratch. He worked on it at home after Mia went to school, sitting at the kitchen table with his old laptop, a machine so slow it took 3 minutes just to boot up. He worked on it in the margins of his life, in the gaps between exhaustion and obligation. The data was a mess. Vendor contracts written in legal jargon, cost projections that didn't account for maintenance, system specs that assumed perfect conditions and zero downtime. It was the kind of thing that looked good in a boardroom presentation, but fell apart the second you stress tested it. Ethan knew how to stress test it. He built a model with 3 scenarios. Best case, the AI system worked flawlessly. Middle case, minor glitches, occasional downtime, standard maintenance costs. Worst case, system failure, data breach, client lawsuits, reputational damage. He ran the numbers. Best case saved the company $800,000 a year. Worst case cost them $14 million. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he saved the file and sent it to Lila. She called him 20 minutes later. Where did you get these numbers? She asked. The vendor contracts. They buried the liability clause in the fine print. If the system fails and causes a breach, Pembroke is responsible for all damages. The vendor's liability is capped at $2 million. How did I miss that? Because it's designed to be missed. Lila was quiet for a moment. This changes everything. Maybe. No, it does. I can take this to the board, and they'll ignore it. They can't. Not with this much exposure. They can do whatever they want, Lila. That's how this works. Not if I make enough noise, Ethan hesitated. You're going to lose your job. Probably. And you're okay with that? No, but I'm okay with trying. He heard the exhaustion in her voice, the weight of it. She was carrying something too heavy for one person. What happens if they listen? He asked. Then we rework the plan. Hybrid model. Keep some human staff, reduce the risk. And if they don't, then at least I tried. Ethan closed his eyes. You're stubborn. So are you. I'm practical. Same thing. He almost smiled. Good luck, Lila. Thank you, Ethan. She hung up. Ethan sat there in the dim glow of his laptop, staring at the spreadsheet. Then he closed it and went to check on Mia. She was asleep, curled up under her blankets, the stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. He stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her breathe. Then he went back to the kitchen and made himself instant ramen because it was all he had left in the cabinet. Lila presented the revised risk assessment to the board on Monday morning. She walked into the conference room at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying a folder full of printouts and a confidence she didn't feel. Gregory was already there, sitting at the far end of the table with his arms crossed. He didn't look happy. "Let's make this quick," Caroline said. "I have another meeting at 10. Lila opened the folder. "I've completed the full risk analysis. The results are concerning." She passed out copies of the report. 12 pages. Charts. Tables. Projections. "The AI system has a significant liability gap," she continued. "If it fails and causes a data breach, Pembroke is financially responsible. The vendor's liability is capped at $2 million. Our exposure is unlimited." Robert Marsh frowned. "How did we miss this?" "It's buried in the contract. Page 47, subsection D." Caroline flipped to the page. Her expression darkened. "This is a problem." "It's a deal breaker," Lila said. "If the system fails, we're looking at potential damages in the tens of millions. Client lawsuits, regulatory fines, reputational damage." "Then we renegotiate the contract," Gregory said. "The vendor won't budge, I already asked." "Then we find another vendor." "There isn't time. Implementation is scheduled for April. It takes 6 months minimum to vet and deploy a new system." The room went quiet. Martin Chen leaned forward. "What's the alternative?" "Hybrid model," Lila said. "Keep a skeleton crew of human staff as backup. 3 people instead of 12. Reduce costs without eliminating the safety net." "That still cuts 9 jobs," Caroline said. "Yes, but it's better than cutting 12 and exposing the company to catastrophic risk." Gregory stood. "This is fear-mongering. The system's been tested. It's safe." "In controlled environments," Lila said, "not in real-world scenarios with real-world consequences." "You're stalling. I'm doing my job." Gregory's face went red. "Your job is to execute the plan, not sabotage it." "I'm not sabotaging anything. I'm presenting facts." "You're protecting your pet project." "I'm protecting the company." Caroline raised a hand. "Enough." She looked at Lila. "Who ran this analysis?" Lila hesitated. "I had help." "From who?" "An external consultant." "Name?" "I'd rather not say." Caroline's eyes narrowed. "Monroe." Lila met her gaze. "Ethan Carter, night security, former financial analyst." The room went silent. Gregory laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "You're basing this report on analysis from a security guard?" "I'm basing it on analysis from someone who knows what he's doing. He's been out of the field for 3 years. And he still caught something we all missed." Caroline tapped her pen against the table. She was thinking, calculating. "I want to see the full model," she said finally. "I can have it to you by end of day." "Do it, and bring Carter in for a meeting." "What?" "If he's competent enough to run this analysis, I want to hear it from him directly." Lila's stomach dropped. "He's not going to agree to that." "Then convince him." The meeting ended. Lila walked out, hands shaking. She'd just thrown Ethan into the fire, and she had no idea if he'd survive the heat. Ethan was halfway through his shift when Lila called. "We have a problem," she said. "What kind of problem?" "The board wants to meet you." Ethan froze. "What?" "Caroline Dryden, COO. She wants to hear the risk assessment directly from you." "I'm not doing that." "Ethan, I'm a security guard. I don't do boardroom presentations." "You used to. That was different." "How?" "Because I had a career. Now I have a job. There's a difference." Lila was quiet for a moment. Then, "They're going to push the layoffs through if you don't show." "They're going to push them through anyway." "Not if you fight." "I'm not a fighter, Lila." "Yes, you are. You just forgot." Ethan closed his eyes. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth. Show them the model. Explain the risks. Make them see what I see." "And what's that?" "That you're the smartest person in this building." "I'm not." "You are. You just don't believe it anymore." Ethan leaned back in his chair. The lobby was empty. The fountain trickled. The city glowed through the windows. "When's the meeting?" he asked. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I work nights." Take the morning off. I can't afford to. I'll cover your shift. You don't know how to run security. I'll figure it out. Ethan laughed. It was a tired, broken sound. You're insane. Probably. Fine, I'll do it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He hung up. Then he sat there in the empty lobby and tried to remember what it felt like to be competent. The next morning, Ethan put on the only suit he still owned. It was 3 years old, slightly too tight in the shoulders, and smelled faintly of mothballs. He hadn't worn it since Sarah's funeral. Mia watched him from the kitchen table, chewing a piece of toast. Why are you dressed fancy? She asked. I have a meeting. What kind of meeting? Work meeting. But you work at night. Not today. She frowned. Are you in trouble? No. You look nervous. I'm fine. That's what you always say. Ethan knelt down beside her chair. I need you to be good for Mrs. Alvarez today, okay? I'm always good. I know, but extra good. Why? Because today's important. Mia studied him for a moment. Then she wrapped her arms around his neck. You look nice, Daddy. His throat tightened. Thanks, Bug. He kissed the top of her head and stood. Then he walked out the door before he could change his mind. The conference room on the 41st floor was bigger than his apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a table that could seat 20, leather chairs that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Lila met him at the elevator. You came, she said. I said I would. How are you feeling? Terrified. Good. That means you care. She led him into the room. 5 people were already seated. Caroline Dryden at the head of the table. Gregory Haynes across from her. 3 others Ethan didn't recognize. Ms. Dryden, this is Ethan Carter, Lila said. Caroline looked him up and down. Sit. Ethan sat. Lila set a laptop in front of him. Walk them through the model. Ethan opened the file. His hands were shaking. Start with the vendor contract, Caroline said. Ethan swallowed. The liability clause is on page 47, subsection D. It caps the vendor's financial responsibility at $2 million. Anything beyond that falls on Pembroke. What's the likelihood of a breach? Robert Marsh asked. Depends on the scenario. Best case, less than 1%. Worst case, closer to 15. 15% is high. It's realistic. The system's only been tested in controlled environments. Real-world deployment introduces variables. Human error, software bugs, external attacks. Gregory leaned forward. You're fear-mongering. I'm calculating risk. That's what you asked for. I asked for a plan, not excuses. Ethan met his eyes. Then you should have read the contract before you signed it. The room went silent. Caroline's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile. Go on. Ethan clicked to the next slide. If the system fails and causes a breach, you're looking at an average settlement cost of $8 million. That's based on comparable cases from the last 5 years. Add in legal fees, regulatory fines, and reputational damage, and you're close to $14 million. What's the probability of all that happening? Someone asked. Low, but not zero. And the cost is high enough that even a low probability matters. Caroline tapped her pen. What's your recommendation? Hybrid model. Keep 3 human staff as backup. Reduces cost savings from $800,000 to $500,000 annually, but it eliminates catastrophic risk. Which 3 staff? Ethan hesitated. The ones with the most relevant skills, Carter, Wells, Tran. You're recommending yourself? I'm recommending the most qualified people. That's convenient. It's accurate. Gregory stood. This is absurd. He's manipulating the data to save his own job. Am I? Ethan opened a new file. Here's the same analysis run by an independent third party. Same conclusions. Same recommendations. I can send you the contact information if you want to verify. He hadn't actually hired anyone. He'd just run the numbers 3 different ways to make sure they held up. But Gregory didn't need to know that. Caroline took the laptop and scrolled through the report. Her expression was unreadable. I'll take this under advisement, she said finally. We'll reconvene next week. Next week? Gregory's voice rose. We're supposed to finalize this today. Plans change, Gregory. Dismissed. People filed out. Ethan stood, legs shaking. Lila touched his arm. You did great, she said quietly. I don't know what I did. You bought more time. For what? For us to figure out what comes next. Ethan walked out of the building into the cold February air. His suit felt too tight. His chest felt too small. But for the first time in 3 years, he felt like he'd done something that mattered, and he didn't know if that was enough. But it was something. That night, Lila covered Ethan's shift. She sat at the front desk, staring at the security monitors, trying to figure out how to answer the phone if it rang. It didn't ring. At 11:52 p.m., her own phone buzzed. It was Ethan. How's it going? He asked. Quiet? Good. That means nothing's on fire. Is that the standard? That's the standard, Lila smiled. How's Mia? Asleep, finally. Did you sing to her? Yeah. Does it work every time? Most of the time. There was a pause, then, thank you for today. You don't have to thank me. I do. You didn't have to show up. Yes, I did. Why? Ethan was quiet for a long time. Because you were right. I forgot what it felt like to be good at something. Lila's chest tightened. You're still good at it. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. We'll see. Yeah, we will. They stayed on the line for a moment, neither of them speaking. Then Ethan said goodnight, and Lila sat there in the empty lobby, listening to the fountain trickle, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. On Friday, Caroline Dryden called an emergency board meeting. Lila wasn't invited. She found out about it from Martin Chen, who stopped by her desk at 4 p.m., looking uncomfortable. They're voting on the plan, he said. When? Now. I should be in there. Caroline said no. Why? Martin hesitated. Because Gregory convinced her you're too close to it. Lila's stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means they think you're protecting Carter, not the company. That's not true. Doesn't matter. Perception is reality. He walked away. Lila sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen. Then she stood up and headed for the 41st floor. The boardroom door was closed. She could hear voices inside, raised voices. She pressed her ear to the door. Liability exposure is unacceptable, Caroline's voice. Fear-mongering from someone with no credibility, Gregory's voice. Model is sound. I had it verified. Caroline again. A stalling tactic. Fiduciary responsibility. Lila stepped back. Her hands were shaking. The door opened. Caroline walked out, followed by the rest of the board. Her face was unreadable. Monroe, she said. My office, now. Lila followed her down the hall. Caroline's office was corner suite, all glass and steel. She closed the door and gestured to a chair. Sit. Lila sat. Caroline leaned against her desk. The board voted to suspend the layoffs indefinitely. Lila's breath caught. What? Your analysis was compelling. The liability risk is too high. We're reworking the plan. So no one gets fired. Not yet. We're exploring the hybrid model. 3 positions retained, 9 eliminated. That's still 9 people. It's better than 12. Lila nodded slowly. What about Ethan? He stays, along with Wells and Tran. The rest will receive severance packages and job placement assistance. When? End of March, 2 months. It wasn't a victory. But it wasn't a massacre either. Thank you, Lila said. Caroline studied her. You risked a lot for this. I know. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. That's not always enough. It was this time. Caroline almost smiled. Gregory's furious. He's going to make your life difficult. I can handle it. Can you? Lila met her eyes. Yes. Good. Because I'm promoting you. Lila blinked. What? Senior Director of Strategic Operations. Effective immediately. You'll report directly to me. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes. Caroline extended her hand. Lila shook it. Don't make me regret this, Monroe. I won't. Lila walked out of the office in a daze. She made it to the elevator before her legs gave out. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Now she just had to figure out what came next. Ethan found out about the decision when he showed up for his shift that night. There was an envelope taped to the security desk with his name on it. He opened it. Position retained. Effective immediately. See HR for updated contract details. He read it 3 times. Then he sat down and called Mia. Daddy? Hey, Bug. Why are you calling? It's not midnight. I know, I just wanted to tell you something. What? I get to keep my job. There was a pause. Were you going to lose it? Ethan closed his eyes. Maybe, but I didn't. Good. Mrs. Alvarez says losing your job is sad. Mrs. Alvarez is right. Are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy. Me too. He smiled. Go finish your homework. I don't have homework. Then go play. Okay? Love you, Daddy. Love you too, Bug. He hung up. Then he sat there in the empty lobby, staring at the letter, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. The relief didn't last. 3 days after the board's decision, Ethan was called into human resources. The office was on the 23rd floor, all beige walls and motivational posters that said things like, "Teamwork makes the dream work," in fonts that made your eyes hurt. He sat in a chair across from a woman named Patricia, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Carter," she said, not looking up from her computer, "your position has been retained, but the terms have changed." Changed how? Your shift will remain nights, Monday through Friday. However, you'll also be required to provide quarterly risk assessments for building security. Those reports will be due the first week of each quarter. Ethan blinked. I'm a security guard. You're a security analyst now. Your title's been updated. I didn't ask for a new title. Patricia finally looked at him. Ms. Dryden requested it. Your pay grade increases to band 7. That's a $4 hourly raise. $4? That was an extra $160 a week, $640 a month. Enough to stop cutting corners. Enough to buy Mia new shoes without checking the clearance rack first. Why? Ethan asked. Because Ms. Dryden believes you're qualified. I haven't done analysis work in 3 years. Then I suggest you get reacquainted with it quickly. Your first report is due April 5th. She handed him a folder. These are your new responsibilities. Sign the updated contract by end of week. Ethan took the folder. His hands felt numb. Is that all? He asked. That's all. He stood and walked out. The folder felt like it weighed 100 pounds. When he got back to the lobby, Marcus Wells was leaning against the front desk. Marcus was 47, broad-shouldered, with graying hair and a scar across his left eyebrow from a bar fight 20 years ago. He'd been working security at Pembroke longer than anyone. Heard you got promoted, Marcus said. Not promoted, reclassified. Same thing. It's not. Marcus crossed his arms. You know why they kept you, right? Because Lila fought for it. Because you made yourself valuable. The rest of us are still disposable. Ethan looked at him. You're staying too. You and Jennifer. For now, until they figure out a way to automate us out. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. Neither do you. Marcus shook his head. You think you're special because you used to wear a suit. You're not. You're just convenient. He walked away before Ethan could respond. Ethan stood there staring at the folder in his hands. Then he shoved it into his bag and tried to forget about it. That night, Lila found him in the atrium at 1:30 in the morning. She was carrying 2 cups of coffee from the break room on the 15th floor. She handed him one. Heard you talk to HR, she said. Yeah. How do you feel? Confused. Why? Because I didn't ask for this. Lila sat down on the bench. You earned it. I ran one analysis. That doesn't make me qualified. You saved the company $14 million. That makes you more than qualified. Ethan sipped the coffee. It was terrible. Burnt and weak. He drank it anyway. Marcus thinks I sold out, he said. Marcus is scared. That's different. Is it? Yeah, it is. Ethan looked at her. Why did you do this? Because you deserved it. That's not a reason. It's the only reason that matters. He wanted to believe her. But there was a voice in the back of his head that said people didn't do things like this without wanting something in return. He just didn't know what Lila wanted yet. "I don't know if I can do this," he said quietly. "Yes, you do. I've been out of it too long. 3 years isn't that long. It is when you've forgotten how to think." Lila set her coffee down. "You haven't forgotten. You just convinced yourself you did. That's not the same thing." "It is exactly the same thing." They sat in silence for a while. The city glowed through the windows. Somewhere below, a siren wailed. "What happens if I fail?" Ethan asked. "Then you fail. But at least you tried." "That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be." He almost smiled. "You're terrible at pep talks." "I know." Lila stood and picked up her coffee. "The first report's due in 6 weeks. If you need help, let me know." "I will." She walked toward the elevator. Ethan watched her go. Then he opened the folder and started reading. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Ethan worked his night shifts, came home to sleep for 4 hours, then spent the afternoon reading building security protocols while Mia did homework at the kitchen table. The work was dense: incident reports, access logs, surveillance footage reviews. He had to analyze patterns, identify vulnerabilities, recommend fixes. It was the kind of work that required focus, the kind of work that made him remember what it felt like to use his brain for something other than staying awake. He hated how much he liked it. On a Tuesday afternoon, Mia looked up from her math worksheet. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Why are you always on the computer now?" "Work stuff." "But you work at night." "I have a different job now." "What kind of job?" "The kind where I look at numbers and try to figure out what they mean." Mia frowned. "That sounds boring." "It kind of is." "Then why do you look happy when you do it?" Ethan paused. "Do I look happy?" "Yeah, you don't look tired." He didn't know what to say to that, so he just ruffled her hair and went back to the spreadsheet. But she was right. He didn't feel as tired anymore, and that scared him more than the work itself. On Friday night, Gregory Haynes cornered Lila outside the executive suite. "We need to talk," he said. Lila didn't stop walking. "I'm busy." "Make time." She turned. Gregory was standing with his arms crossed, jaw tight. He looked like a man who'd lost something and couldn't figure out where it went. "What do you want, Gregory?" "I want to know why you sabotaged my project." "I didn't sabotage anything. I did my job." "You undermined me in front of the board." "I presented facts. You ignored them. You made me look incompetent. You did that yourself." Gregory's face went red. "You think you're untouchable now that Caroline's protecting you." "I don't need protection." "Everyone needs protection, Monroe, even you." Lila stepped closer. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. You made an enemy today, and I don't forget." "Neither do I." They stood there, locked in a staring contest. Then Gregory turned and walked away. Lila exhaled. Her hands were shaking. She went back to her office and closed the door. Then she sat at her desk and tried to figure out what she'd just gotten herself into. The problem was, she already knew. She'd made Gregory look weak, and weak men didn't forgive that. 2 days later, Ethan submitted his first draft of the quarterly security assessment. He emailed it to Caroline at 11 p.m., then sat back and stared at the screen, second-guessing every word. Caroline responded at 11:43. "This is solid work. A few revisions needed. See attached notes. Final draft. Due Monday." Ethan opened the attachment. The notes were detailed but fair. She'd flagged 2 sections where his logic jumped too fast, and one where he needed more supporting data. He spent the weekend revising. On Monday morning, he submitted the final version. Caroline called him that afternoon. "Carter, good work." "Thank you. I'm forwarding this to the executive team. You'll present it at the next quarterly review." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Present it?" "Yes, in front of the board." "I don't do presentations." "You did one 2 weeks ago." "That was different." "How?" "That was survival. This is also survival, just a different kind." Ethan closed his eyes. "When's the review?" "March 20th, 10 a.m. Don't be late." She hung up. Ethan sat there, staring at his phone. Then he called Lila. "I need help," he said. She met him in the atrium at midnight. Ethan was pacing. Lila sat on the bench, laptop open, watching him wear a path in the tile. "You're panicking," she said. "I'm not panicking." "You're definitely panicking. I just don't understand why she's making me present it." "Because you wrote it, and because she wants the board to see who you are. They already know who I am. I'm the guy who checks doors at 2 a.m. You're the guy who saved them $14 million. Ethan stopped pacing. "That was one time. One time is all it takes." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to do this anymore." "Yes, you do. You just have to remember." "I don't want to remember." Lila stood. "Why not?" "Because remembering means admitting I gave up, and I don't know if I can live with that." Her expression softened. "You didn't give up, Ethan. You survived." "There's a difference. Not as much as you think." They stood there in the quiet. The building hummed around them. Outside, the city glowed. "What if I fail?" Ethan asked. "Then you fail. But you'll fail trying. That's better than not trying at all." He wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because she was right. The next 2 weeks, Lila coached him. They met in the atrium every night after his rounds. She walked him through presentation structure, how to read the room, how to handle questions. She was patient, precise, and she didn't let him get away with anything. "Stop apologizing," she said one night. "I didn't apologize." "You said, this might be wrong, but..." "That's an apology. It's a hedge. It's a weakness. Don't give them an opening." Ethan tried again. "The data shows..." "Louder. The data shows..." "Louder." He raised his voice. "The data shows a 15% vulnerability in the north stairwell access points." "Better. Now own it." "I am owning it." "No, you're reciting it. Owning it means believing it." He met her eyes. "I do believe it." "Then show me." He took a breath. "The north stairwell access points have a 15% vulnerability rate. That's unacceptable. We need to upgrade the hardware by end of quarter or we're exposed." Lila nodded. "There you go." That sounded bossy. That sounded confident. Same thing. Exactly. Ethan almost smiled. "You're a good teacher." "I'm a terrible teacher." "You're just a good student." They kept working. Ethan's confidence grew, slowly, unevenly. But it grew. By the time March 20th arrived, he almost believed he could do it. Almost. The morning of the presentation, Ethan woke up at 6 a.m. with his heart pounding. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the boardroom, the faces, the questions he wouldn't be able to answer. He got Mia ready for school, made her breakfast, and walked her to the bus stop. She hugged him before she got on. "You look scared," she said. "I'm fine." "That's what you always say." He smiled. "I know. Good luck, Daddy." "Thanks, Bug." She climbed onto the bus. Ethan watched it drive away. Then he went home and put on his suit. At 9:45, he walked into Pembroke Tower. Lila was waiting by the elevator. "You ready?" she asked. "No." "Good. That means you care." They rode the elevator to the 41st floor in silence. When the doors opened, Ethan's stomach lurched. "You've got this," Lila said. "I don't." "You do." She walked him to the boardroom. The door was closed. Ethan could hear voices inside. "I'll be right here," Lila said, "the whole time." He nodded. Then he opened the door and walked in. The room was full. Caroline at the head of the table. Gregory across from her. 10 other executives Ethan didn't recognize. They all turned to look at him. "Carter," Caroline said, "take a seat." Ethan sat. His hands were shaking. He folded them in his lap. "Walk us through your findings," Caroline said. Ethan opened his laptop. The presentation loaded. 15 slides, charts, data, recommendations. He took a breath. "The quarterly security assessment identified 3 major vulnerabilities," he began. His voice was steady, clearer than he expected. "The north stairwell access points, the loading dock surveillance system, and the executive floor keycard protocol." He clicked to the next slide. "The north stairwell has a 15% failure rate on access logs. That's a security gap. If someone bypasses the system, we won't know until it's too late." "What's your recommendation?" someone asked. "Upgrade the hardware. Replace the card readers with biometric scanners. Cost is $40,000. ROI is immediate." Gregory leaned forward. 40,000 is a significant expense. 14 million is a bigger one. The room went quiet. Ethan clicked to the next slide. The loading dock surveillance system is outdated. Cameras have blind spots. Footage retention is only 30 days. That's not enough for forensic analysis if something goes wrong. What's the fix? Caroline asked. Upgrade to a cloud-based system. Cost is 60,000. Footage retention increases to 90 days. Blind spots are eliminated. And the executive floor protocol? Keycards expire every 6 months, but there's no automatic deactivation when someone leaves the company. Former employees still have access. Gregory's face went pale. How many former employees? Caroline asked. Ethan pulled up a spreadsheet. 47. The room erupted. Voices overlapped. Someone swore. Caroline raised a hand. Quiet. The room fell silent. She looked at Ethan. How long has this been an issue? At least 2 years. And no one caught it? No one was looking. Caroline's jaw tightened. She turned to Gregory. This is your department. Gregory stammered. I wasn't aware. That's the problem. She looked back at Ethan. What's the fix? Immediate deactivation protocol. Tie keycard access to HR termination records. Cost is minimal. Implementation takes 2 weeks. Do it. Yes, ma'am. Caroline closed her laptop. Anything else? One more thing. Ethan clicked to the last slide. I recommend quarterly audits moving forward. Not just security, all operational systems. If we're missing something this big, we're probably missing other things too. Caroline nodded. Agreed. You'll lead the audits. Ethan blinked. I'm sorry? You heard me. You'll report directly to me. Quarterly reviews. Full operational scope. I don't have the authority for that. You do now. Gregory stood. This is absurd. He's not qualified. He just found 47 security breaches you missed, Gregory. I'd say he's more than qualified. Gregory's face went red, but he sat down. Caroline stood. Good work, Carter. Dismissed. Ethan walked out of the room in a daze. Lila was waiting in the hallway. How'd it go? She asked. I think I just got another promotion. She smiled. Told you. Ethan leaned against the wall. His legs felt like jelly. I need to sit down, he said. You need to celebrate. I need to not pass out. Lila laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and unguarded. Come on, she said. I'll buy you coffee. They took the elevator to the ground floor. The lobby was empty except for the fountain. Lila bought 2 cups of burnt coffee from the machine in the break room. They sat on the bench in the atrium and drank it in silence. Thank you, Ethan said finally. For what? For believing I could do this. I didn't make you do anything. You did it yourself. I wouldn't have tried if you hadn't pushed me. Lila looked at him. You would have. Eventually. I don't think so. I do. They sat there, shoulder to shoulder, watching the city wake up through the windows. For the first time in 3 years, Ethan felt like he was standing on solid ground, and it was because of her. He didn't know what to do with that, but he knew one thing: he wasn't going to waste it. The promotion came through 2 days later. Ethan got the official email at 10:30 on a Thursday morning while he was making Mia lunch. Peanut butter and jelly, cut into triangles because she refused to eat sandwiches cut into squares. Position: Senior Operations Analyst. Salary: $78,000 annually. Start date: April 1st. Report directly to COO Caroline Dryden. He read it 3 times. Then he sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the number. $78,000. That was more than he'd made at Creston, more than he'd ever made in his life. It was enough to move out of Bridgeport, enough to stop worrying about whether Mrs. Alvarez would keep watching Mia if he couldn't pay her on time, enough to buy Mia the kind of life Sarah had wanted for her. It was enough to breathe. Mia walked into the kitchen, backpack slung over one shoulder. Why are you crying? She asked. Ethan wiped his eyes. I'm not crying. Yes, you are. I'm just tired. She crossed her arms. That's what you always say. He laughed. It came out wet and broken. Come here. She walked over. Ethan pulled her into a hug and held on tight. What's wrong, Daddy? Nothing's wrong. Then why are you sad? I'm not sad. I'm happy. Happy people don't cry. Sometimes they do. She pulled back and looked at him. Are we okay? His throat tightened. Yeah, Bug, we're okay. She studied him for a moment. Then she picked up her sandwich and took a bite. This one tastes better than yesterday. It's the same sandwich. No, it's not. He smiled. Go finish your lunch. She went back to the table. Ethan sat there, staring at the email, trying to figure out how his life had changed so fast, and wondering when it would all fall apart again. The first crack appeared 3 weeks later. Ethan was in Caroline's office, going over the preliminary findings for the operational audit, when Gregory walked in without knocking. We need to talk, Gregory said. Caroline didn't look up from her laptop. I'm in a meeting. This can't wait. It can, and it will. Gregory's jaw tightened. It's about Carter. That got her attention. She closed the laptop. What about him? He's overstepping. The audit scope is too broad. He's pulling reports from departments that don't fall under operations. Which departments? Finance, HR, legal. Caroline looked at Ethan. Is that true? Ethan nodded. Yes. The audit's supposed to identify systemic vulnerabilities. I can't do that if I'm only looking at one silo. You're not qualified to audit finance, Gregory said. I worked in finance for 3 years. And then you spent 3 years checking doors. The room went cold. Ethan stood. I'm sorry. Am I not supposed to do my job because you're embarrassed you didn't do yours? Gregory's face went red. You don't talk to me like that. Then don't talk to me like I'm stupid. Enough. Caroline's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She looked at Gregory. Ethan's audit scope was approved by me. If you have concerns, bring them to me, not to him. Clear? Gregory's hands clenched into fists. Clear. Good. Now get out. Gregory turned and walked out. The door slammed behind him. Caroline sighed. He's going to make this difficult. I noticed. Can you handle it? I don't know. Wrong answer. Ethan met her eyes. Then, yes, I can handle it. Good, because he's going to come after you, and I need to know you won't fold. I won't. Prove it. She opened her laptop again. The meeting was over. Ethan walked out, hands shaking. He made it to the elevator before his chest tightened. He pressed the button for the 3rd floor and rode up in silence. The atrium was empty. He sat on the bench and tried to breathe. This was the part he'd been waiting for, the part where it all came crashing down, because people like him didn't get promotions. They didn't get second chances. They got by. They survived. And eventually they got replaced. His phone buzzed. It was Lila. Heard about Gregory. You okay? He typed back. Fine. You're not? Meet me in the atrium. I'm already here. I know. Turn around. He turned. Lila was standing by the elevator holding 2 cups of coffee. You're predictable, she said. I'm consistent. She sat down beside him and handed him a cup. Gregory's an ass. He's not wrong. About what? I'm not qualified for this. I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, you do. I spent 3 years doing nothing, Lila. That doesn't just go away because someone gave me a title. You didn't do nothing. You raised your daughter. You kept yourself together. That's harder than any job. Ethan shook his head. That's not the same thing. It is exactly the same thing. They sat in silence. The coffee was terrible, as always. Ethan drank it anyway. What if I fail? He asked quietly. Then you fail, but you're not going to. How do you know? Because I've seen you work. You don't half-ass anything. He almost smiled. That's not a ringing endorsement. It's the truth. Ethan looked at her. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Helping me. Believing in me. You don't owe me anything. Lila was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My dad worked in a factory for 30 years. He was good at his job. Really good. But when the company automated, they let him go. Gave him 2 weeks severance and a handshake. He spent the next 5 years looking for work. Never found anything. He died thinking he was disposable. Her voice cracked. I watched the system chew him up and spit him out, and I swore I'd never be the person who did that to someone else. So when I saw your name on that termination list, I couldn't... She stopped, took a breath. I couldn't let it happen again. Ethan stared at her. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just don't waste this. I won't. Good. She stood and picked up her coffee. Get back to work, Carter. You've got an audit to finish. He watched her walk away. Then he pulled out his laptop and got back to work. The audit took 6 weeks. Ethan worked nights, mornings, and every spare hour in between. He pulled reports from 12 departments, interviewed 43 employees, built spreadsheets that tracked everything from vendor payments to email response times. What he found wasn't good. The finance department had been overpaying a software vendor for 2 years. $60,000 in redundant charges that no one had caught. HR's onboarding process was missing background checks for contract workers, a liability exposure that could cost millions if something went wrong. Legal had been sitting on 3 unresolved discrimination complaints for over a year. No follow-up, no documentation, just buried in a file cabinet. Ethan compiled everything into a report, 52 pages, charts, data, recommendations. He submitted it to Caroline on a Monday morning. She called him into her office that afternoon. "This is damning," she said. "I know. Half the executive team is going to hate you for this." "I know. And you're okay with that?" Ethan met her eyes. "I'm okay with telling the truth." Caroline smiled. It wasn't warm, but it was approving. "Good, because you're presenting this to the full board on Friday." His stomach dropped. "The full board?" "All 15 members, including the CEO." "I've never met the CEO." "You will, and he's going to ask you hard questions. Can you handle it?" "I don't know." Wrong answer. Ethan took a breath. "Yes, I can handle it." "Then prove it." She dismissed him with a wave. Ethan walked out, heart pounding. He had 4 days to prepare, and he had no idea if he was ready. Lila found him that night in the atrium, staring at his laptop screen. "You're spiraling," she said. "I'm not spiraling." "You're definitely spiraling." Ethan looked up. "The CEO's going to be there." "I know." "What if he hates it?" "Then he hates it, but he won't." "How do you know?" "Because it's good work, and because you're not going to let him intimidate you." "He's the CEO." "So what? He's just a person." "He's not just a person. He's the person who decides if I keep my job." Lila sat down beside him. "Ethan, listen to me. You've already proven yourself. This presentation isn't about convincing them you're competent. It's about showing them what they've been missing. And if they don't like what they see, then they're idiots, but they're not. So stop panicking and start preparing." She pulled the laptop toward her. "Show me what you've got." They worked through the night. Lila tore apart his presentation and rebuilt it, made him cut the jargon, simplify the charts, lead with the findings, not the methodology. "Stop explaining how you got the data," she said. "They don't care. They care what the data means. But the methodology matters, not in the boardroom. In the boardroom, clarity matters, impact matters. Tell them what's broken and how to fix it. That's it." "That feels too simple." "Simple is good. Simple means they can't misunderstand you." By 3 a.m., the presentation was ready. 15 slides. Clean, direct, brutal. "You've got this," Lila said. "I don't feel like I've got this." "You never do, but you always pull it off anyway." Ethan closed the laptop. "Why do you have so much faith in me?" "Because you have so little faith in yourself. Someone has to balance it out." He almost smiled. "That's a terrible reason." "It's the best reason." They sat there in the quiet. The building hummed around them. Outside, the city was starting to wake. "Thank you," Ethan said. "Stop thanking me. I can't." "Try harder." He laughed. It was tired and rough, but it was real. "Go home," Lila said. "Get some sleep. You're going to need it." He nodded. Then he stood and headed for the elevator. Lila watched him go. Then she opened her own laptop and started drafting her resignation letter. She didn't know if she'd need it, but she had a feeling she might. On Friday morning, Ethan walked into the executive boardroom at 9:58. The room was bigger than any space he'd ever presented in. 20 chairs, a table that could fit a car, windows that overlooked the entire city. 15 people were already seated. Caroline at the far end, Gregory across from her. And at the head of the table, a man in a navy suit with silver hair and sharp eyes. David Penbrook, CEO, founder, the man whose name was on the building. Ethan's mouth went dry. Mr. Carter, Pembroke said. His voice was calm, measured. Take a seat. Ethan sat. I've read your report, Pembroke continued. It's comprehensive and deeply concerning. Yes, sir. Walk us through your findings. Ethan opened his laptop. The presentation loaded. He took a breath. Over the past 6 weeks, I conducted a full operational audit across 12 departments. What I found were systemic failures in oversight, accountability, and risk management. He clicked to the first slide. Finance has been overpaying a vendor by $60,000 annually for 2 years. That's $120,000 in waste. Who approved the contract? Someone asked. Ethan pulled up the document. Gregory Haynes. The room went silent. Gregory's face turned pale. I wasn't aware, Gregory started. You signed off on it, Ethan said, twice. Pembroke raised a hand. Continue. Ethan clicked to the next slide. HR is missing background checks for 37 contract workers. That's a legal liability. If any of those workers cause harm, we're exposed. How did this happen? Pembroke asked. The onboarding process was updated 2 years ago. Background checks were supposed to be automatic, but the system integration failed. No one caught it. Who was responsible for the integration? Gregory Haynes, Gregory stood. This is a witch hunt. Sit down, Pembroke said. Gregory sat. Ethan clicked to the next slide. Legal has 3 unresolved discrimination complaints. Oldest one is 14 months old, no investigation, no documentation, no resolution. Why weren't these escalated? Pembroke asked. They were, to Gregory Haynes. He didn't follow up. The room erupted. Voices overlapped. Someone swore. Gregory tried to defend himself, but Pembroke silenced him with a look. Enough. Pembroke's voice was cold. He turned to Ethan. What's your recommendation? 3 things. First, immediate audit of all vendor contracts. Identify redundancies and renegotiate terms. Second, overhaul the HR onboarding process. Make background checks non-negotiable. Third, bring in an external firm to handle the discrimination complaints. We've lost credibility internally. Cost? $300,000 for the external audit and legal review. But it'll save us millions in exposure. Pembroke nodded. Approved. He looked at Gregory. You're suspended pending investigation. Effective immediately. Gregory's face went white. You can't. I can. And I am. Security will escort you out. 2 guards appeared at the door. Gregory stood, shaking with rage. He looked at Ethan. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Pembroke said. Gregory walked out. The door closed behind him. Pembroke turned to Ethan. You've made enemies today. I know. Can you live with that? I already am. Pembroke almost smiled. Good. You're promoted. VP of Operational Integrity. You'll report directly to me. Salary is $130,000. Start date is immediate. Ethan's brain short-circuited. What? You heard me. This company's been asleep at the wheel. You just woke us up. Don't make me regret it. I won't. Then get to work. The meeting ended. People filed out. Ethan sat there, stunned. Caroline stopped by his chair. Congratulations. I don't know what just happened. You just became the most powerful analyst in this building. Don't waste it. She walked out. Ethan sat there, staring at the empty room. Then he picked up his laptop and walked out into the hallway. Lila was waiting by the elevator. How'd it go? She asked. I got promoted. She smiled. I know. How? Because I've been watching you fight for weeks, and you finally stopped apologizing for it. Ethan looked at her. This wouldn't have happened without you. Yes, it would have, just slower. I don't think so. Lila's expression softened. You're going to be okay, Ethan. I hope so. I know so. They stood there, 2 people who'd been strangers 6 weeks ago, now tied together by something neither of them knew how to name. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now you go home, hug your daughter, and figure out what kind of life you want to build. And you? I'll be here, doing the same thing. Ethan nodded. Then he walked toward the elevator. Lila watched him go, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe she'd done something that mattered. That night, Ethan picked Mia up from school himself. He signed her out early, took her to the park, and pushed her on the swings until his arms hurt. "Why aren't you at work?" she asked. "Because I wanted to spend time with you." "But you always work." "Not today," she grinned. "Does this mean we're rich?" Ethan laughed. "We're not rich." "Are we poor?" "We're okay." "What's okay?" "It means we don't have to worry anymore." She thought about that for a moment. Then she jumped off the swing and ran to the slide. Ethan watched her play. The sun was setting. The sky was pink and orange. And for the first time in 3 years, he felt like he could breathe. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Lila. "Proud of you," he typed back. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me." "Never." He smiled. Then he put his phone away and went to catch Mia at the bottom of the slide. The new office came with a view. Ethan stood at the window on the 39th floor, staring out at the city spread below like a circuit board of light and shadow. His office. Not a desk in a shared space, not a security booth in a lobby. An actual office with a door that closed and a nameplate that read, "Ethan Carter, VP of Operational Integrity." It still didn't feel real. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Alvarez. "Mia wants to know if you're coming home for dinner." He checked the time. 6:43. He told himself he'd leave by 6. "On my way. Tell her I'm picking up pizza. She says she wants the one with the stuffed crust." "Tell her I know." He smiled and grabbed his coat. The office could wait. Mia couldn't. On his way to the elevator, he passed Lila's office. The door was open. She was still at her desk, staring at her laptop with the kind of focus that meant she'd forgotten to eat lunch again. He knocked on the door frame. "You're still here." She looked up. "So are you." "I'm leaving." "No, you're not. You just got here." "I've been here since 8 this morning." "That's barely a full day." Ethan leaned against the door frame. "When's the last time you went home before midnight?" Lila thought about it. "Tuesday. That was 4 days ago." "Your point?" "My point is, you're going to burn out." "I'm fine." "You're not, and you know it." She closed her laptop. "I have a presentation Monday. I need to finish it. You need to sleep." "I'll sleep when it's done." Ethan walked into her office and sat down in the chair across from her desk. "When I was at Creston, there was a guy named Derek, smart, driven, worked 90-hour weeks, made partner at 32, had a heart attack at 34. Lila frowned. "Is this supposed to be motivational?" "It's supposed to be a warning. You can't sustain this." "I've been sustaining it for 6 years. And how's that working out for you?" She didn't answer. Ethan stood. "Come on." "Where?" "Dinner. My treat." "I have work." "It'll still be here tomorrow." Lila looked at her laptop, then at him, then back at her laptop. "Fine," she said, "but only if we go somewhere that doesn't have a drive-through." Deal. They ended up at a diner 3 blocks from Pembroke Tower. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a menu that was 8 pages long and hadn't been updated since 1987. Lila ordered a grilled cheese and Ethan ordered a burger. They sat by the window and watched the city move past. "How's Mia?" Lila asked. "Good. She's trying to convince me to get a dog." "Are you going to?" "Probably not. Our apartment doesn't allow pets." "So move." Ethan looked at her. "It's not that simple." "Why not? You're making enough now." "I know, but moving feels like—" He stopped, searched for the words. "It feels like admitting Sarah's really gone." Lila's expression softened. "She is gone, Ethan." "I know." "Then why are you still living like she's coming back?" He stared at his plate. "Because if I move, I have to admit that this is it. This is my life now, and I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You've been ready for 3 years. You just haven't let yourself see it." The food arrived. They ate in silence for a while. The grilled cheese was greasy. The burger was overcooked. It was perfect. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said. "Sure." "Why don't you ever talk about yourself?" Lila looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've told you about Sarah, about Mia, about Creston, but I don't know anything about you, where you're from, if you have family, what you do when you're not working." "I'm always working." "That's not an answer." She set down her sandwich. "I'm from a town called Millbrook, 2 hours south of here. My mom still lives there. I don't talk to her much." "Why not?" Because she thinks I sold out, went corporate, forgot where I came from. Did you? I don't know, maybe. Ethan leaned back. What about your dad? You said he worked in a factory. He did. Until he didn't. Lila's voice went flat. After he lost his job, he tried to start over. Applied to hundreds of places. Never got a call back. He started drinking. Then he stopped showing up for interviews. Then he just stopped trying. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. She looked at him. No, it doesn't. They sat there, two people carrying weight they didn't know how to put down. Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing? Lila asked. What do you mean? I mean we're corporate now. We're part of the system. The same system that destroyed my dad. That almost destroyed you. We're trying to fix it. Are we? Or are we just making it more efficient? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. They finished eating. Ethan paid. They walked back to the tower in silence. At the entrance, Lila stopped. Thank you. For what? For reminding me I'm human. You don't need reminding. I do. More than you think. She turned to go inside. Ethan caught her arm. Lila. She looked back. You're not your dad, and you're not the system. You're just someone trying to do the right thing. That's enough. Her eyes went bright. She nodded. Then she walked inside before he could see her cry. Ethan stood there for a moment, then he headed home. Mia was waiting for him when he walked through the door. She was sitting at the kitchen table, doing homework, or pretending to. You're late, she said. I know, sorry. Mrs. Alvarez said you forgot the pizza. Ethan swore under his breath. I'll order it now. It's okay. We made mac and cheese. We? Mrs. Alvarez appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. I figured you'd forget. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't make a habit of it. She grabbed her coat and left. Ethan sat down across from Mia. What are you working on? Math. Need help? No. I'm done. She closed her notebook. Daddy? Yeah? Are we moving? Ethan blinked. What? Jessica at school says when people get new jobs, they move to bigger houses. Who's Jessica? A girl in my class. She's annoying. Then why do you care what she says? Mia shrugged. I don't, but are we? Ethan looked around the apartment. The peeling paint, the radiator that clanked, the window that didn't lock. It was small. It was worn, but it was theirs. Do you want to move? He asked. Mia thought about it. I don't know. I like it here. Even though the radiator's loud? It's not that loud. Even though your window doesn't close right? I like the air. Ethan smiled. Okay, then we'll stay. But what if you want to move? I don't. But what if you do later? He reached across the table and took her hand. Then we'll talk about it, together. Okay? Okay? She went back to her homework. Ethan watched her for a moment. Then he stood and went to make dinner. But the question stayed with him. Did he want to move? A month later, Pembroke announced a company-wide restructuring. Not layoffs, reorganization. Ethan's department expanded. He hired 3 analysts, built a team, implemented quarterly audits across every division. The work was exhausting, but it was good. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was building something that mattered. One afternoon, Caroline called him into her office. Sit, she said. Ethan sat. I'm stepping down, she said. Ethan's stomach dropped. What? End of the year. I'm taking a CEO position at another firm. Why? Because I've done everything I can do here, and I'm ready for something new. Who's replacing you? Caroline smiled. You. Ethan laughed. No. Yes. I've been here 6 months. And you've already proven yourself more than people who've been here 6 years. I'm not qualified. Neither was I when I started. You'll figure it out. Ethan shook his head. I can't. Why not? Because I have a daughter, and I can't do that job and be the father she needs. Caroline leaned back in her chair. Then don't take it. But don't say no because you're scared. I'm not scared. Yes, you are, and that's okay. But don't let fear make your decisions for you. She stood. You have 2 weeks to think about it. Let me know. Ethan walked out in a daze. He made it to his office and closed the door. Then he sat at his desk and stared at the wall. COO, Chief Operating Officer, the second highest position in the company. It was everything he'd worked for at Creston, everything he'd given up when Sarah died, and he had no idea if he wanted it. That night, he called Lila. "I need advice," he said. "About what?" "Caroline offered me her job." There was a pause. And? "And I don't know what to do." "Why not?" "Because if I take it, I'll be working 80-hour weeks. I'll never see Mia. I'll turn into the kind of person I used to hate. Or you'll turn into the kind of person who changes the system from the inside." "That's naive." "Maybe, but it's also possible." Ethan was quiet. "What does Mia think?" Lila asked. "I haven't told her." "Why not?" "Because she's 6. "So? She's smarter than half the people in this building." Ethan almost smiled. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait." She hung up. Ethan sat there, staring at his phone. Then he went to check on Mia. She was asleep, curled up under her blankets, the stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. He stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. Then he made his decision. The next morning, he walked into Caroline's office. "I'm not taking it," he said. Caroline looked up. "Okay." "That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say?" "I offered." "You declined. That's how this works." "I thought you'd try to convince me." "I don't convince people to do things they don't want to do." Ethan sat down. "It's not that I don't want it." "Then what is it?" "I spent 3 years being absent. I can't do that to Mia again." Caroline nodded. "That's fair. But I want to recommend someone." "Who?" "Lila Monroe." Caroline raised an eyebrow. "She's 30. So? I'm 32. She's never run operations." "Neither had you when you started." Caroline smiled. "Touché." She leaned back. "Why her?" "Because she's the smartest person I know, and because she actually cares about doing the right thing." "That's not always enough." "It was for you." Caroline studied him for a moment. Then she picked up her phone. "I'll talk to her." Ethan stood. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You just gave up a 7-figure job." "I know." "Do you regret it?" He thought about Mia, about the night singing her to sleep, about the life he'd built from nothing. "No," he said. "I don't." Caroline nodded. "Then you made the right choice." Lila got the offer 2 weeks later. She called Ethan at midnight. "Did you do this?" she asked. "Do what?" "Recommend me for COO." "Maybe." "Ethan." "You're welcome." "I don't know if I can do this." "Yes, you do." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, but you won't." There was a long pause, then, "Thank you." "Stop thanking me." "Never." She hung up. Ethan smiled and went back to sleep. 3 months later, Lila became COO. She restructured operations, expanded oversight, implemented policies that protected workers instead of exploiting them. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And that was enough. One Saturday afternoon in June, Ethan took Mia to the park. They'd been coming here every weekend since he got the promotion. It was their routine, their time. Mia was on the swings. Ethan was pushing her, listening to her laugh. "Higher," she shouted. "Any higher, and you'll fly away." "Good, then I can see the clouds." He pushed her higher. She squealed with delight. When she finally got tired, they sat on a bench and shared a bag of chips. The sun was warm, the sky was clear. "Daddy?" Mia said. "Yeah? Are you happy?" The question surprised him. "Why do you ask?" "Because you smile more now." "I do?" "Yeah, you used to look sad all the time, but now you look happy." Ethan looked at her, this little girl with wild curls and gap teeth, this person who'd kept him alive when he wanted to give up. "Yeah, Bug," he said, "I'm happy." "Good. Me too." She went back to the swings. Ethan watched her play, and he realized something. He'd spent 3 years thinking survival was enough, that keeping his head down and getting by was all he deserved. But Lila had shown him something different. She'd shown him that sometimes survival wasn't the goal. Sometimes you had to fight. You had to stand up. You had to believe you were worth more than the world told you. And when you did, things changed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but they changed. That night he called Lila. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me." "I never gave up on you. You gave up on yourself." "I know, but you reminded me I didn't have to." Lila was quiet for a moment. "You would have figured it out eventually." "Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone." "Me too." They stayed on the line for a while, neither of them speaking, just breathing, just being. "Ethan," Lila said finally. "Yeah?" "I'm proud of you." His throat tightened. "I'm proud of you too." They hung up. Ethan sat there in the dark, staring at his phone. Then he went to check on Mia. She was asleep. He stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. Then he whispered, "Love you, bug." And he meant it. 6 months later, Ethan got a call from a recruiter. A private equity firm in New York wanted to talk to him about a senior analyst position. Big salary, big title, big opportunity. He turned it down. Not because he was scared, not because he didn't think he could do it, but because he'd learned something over the past year. Success wasn't about titles. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about climbing higher than everyone else. It was about building a life you didn't want to escape from. And for the first time in his life, Ethan had that. He had Mia. He had work that mattered. He had friends who believed in him. He had enough. And enough, he'd learned, was everything. 1 year after the board meeting that changed his life, Ethan stood in the atrium on the 3rd floor. It was midnight. The building was quiet. The city glowed through the windows. Lila found him there, holding 2 cups of terrible coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how different everything is now." Lila handed him a cup. "Different good or different bad?" "Different good." They sat on the bench, the same bench where they'd sat a dozen times before, where they'd planned, where they'd fought, where they'd figured out how to survive. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't heard me that night?" Ethan asked. "All the time." And I think I would have pushed the layoffs through. 12 people would have lost their jobs, and I would have spent the rest of my life hating myself for it." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Ethan looked at her. "You saved my life, Lila." "No, I didn't. You saved your own. I just reminded you that you could." "That's the same thing." "It's not, but I'll let you believe it is." They sat in silence, drinking their coffee, watching the city breathe. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. "Now we keep going, keep building, keep trying to do the right thing. And if we fail, then we fail together." Ethan smiled. "I can live with that." "Good, because you're stuck with me now. Worse things have happened." Lila laughed. It was warm and real and unguarded. And in that moment, Ethan realized something. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. And that made all the difference. 2 weeks later, Ethan signed a lease on a new apartment. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that fit a real table, windows that locked, a building that allowed pets. Mia cried when he told her they were moving. "But I like our old apartment," she said. "I know, but you'll like this one too." "How do you know?" "Because it has a park across the street, and a big window in your room, and space for a dog." Her eyes went wide. "A dog?" "Maybe, if you're good." She threw her arms around him. "I'll be so good." He laughed and hugged her back. Moving day was chaos, boxes everywhere, furniture that didn't fit, a radiator that worked too well instead of not well enough. But it was theirs, and it felt like home. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan stood at the window and looked out at the city. It was the same view he'd seen from Pembroke Tower, the same lights, the same streets, but everything felt different now. He pulled out his phone and took a picture. Then he sent it to Lila. "New view," she responded a minute later. "Looks good. Feels good too. Proud of you. Stop saying that. Never." He smiled and put his phone away. Then he went to check on Mia one last time. She was asleep, curled up in her new room, the stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. The moonlight streamed through the window. She looked peaceful. Ethan stood there watching her breathe and thought about everything that had changed in the past year. He'd gone from security guard to VP, from barely surviving to actually living, from a man who'd given up to a man who'd learned how to fight. And none of it would have happened if Lila hadn't heard him singing that night. But that wasn't the lesson. The lesson was that sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones you expect. Sometimes they're strangers in a hallway who choose to care when they didn't have to. Sometimes they're the ones who remind you that you're worth fighting for. And sometimes that's all you need to start over. Ethan walked back to his own room. He lay down in bed and closed his eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, he fell asleep without feeling like he was drowning, because he wasn't drowning anymore. He was swimming, and he was finally headed toward shore. The new office came with a view. Ethan stood at the window on the 39th floor, staring out at the city spread below like a circuit board of light and shadow. His office. Not a desk in a shared space, not a security booth in a lobby. An actual office with a door that closed and a nameplate that read Ethan Carter, VP of Operational Integrity. It still didn't feel real. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Alvarez. Mia wants to know if you're coming home for dinner. He checked the time. 6:43. He told himself he'd leave by 6. On my way. Tell her I'm picking up pizza. She says she wants the one with the stuffed crust. Tell her I know. He smiled and grabbed his coat. The office could wait. Mia couldn't. On his way to the elevator, he passed Lila's office. The door was open. She was still at her desk, staring at her laptop with the kind of focus that meant she'd forgotten to eat lunch again. He knocked on the door frame. You're still here. She looked up. So are you. I'm leaving. No, you're not. You just got here. I've been here since 8 this morning. That's barely a full day. Ethan leaned against the door frame. When's the last time you went home before midnight? Layla thought about it. Tuesday. That was 4 days ago. Your point? My point is you're going to burn out. I'm fine. You're not, and you know it. She closed her laptop. I have a presentation Monday. I need to finish it. You need to sleep. I'll sleep when it's done. Ethan walked into her office and sat down in the chair across from her desk. When I was at Creston, there was a guy named Derek. Smart, driven, worked 90-hour weeks, made partner at 32, had a heart attack at 34. Lila frowned. Is this supposed to be motivational? It's supposed to be a warning. You can't sustain this. I've been sustaining it for 6 years. And how's that working out for you? She didn't answer. Ethan stood. Come on. Where? Dinner. My treat. I have work. It'll still be here tomorrow. Lila looked at her laptop, then at him, then back at her laptop. Fine, she said, but only if we go somewhere that doesn't have a drive-through. Deal. They ended up at a diner 3 blocks from Pembroke Tower, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a menu that was 8 pages long and hadn't been updated since 1987. Lila ordered a grilled cheese and Ethan ordered a burger. They sat by the window and watched the city move past. How's Mia? Lila asked. Good. She's trying to convince me to get a dog. Are you going to? Probably not. Our apartment doesn't allow pets. So move. Ethan looked at her. It's not that simple. Why not? You're making enough now. I know, but moving feels like... He stopped, searched for the words. It feels like admitting Sarah's really gone. Lila's expression softened. She is gone, Ethan. I know. Then why are you still living like she's coming back? He stared at his plate. Because if I move, I have to admit that this is it. This is my life now. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. You've been ready for 3 years. You just haven't let yourself see it. The food arrived. They ate in silence for a while. The grilled cheese was greasy. The burger was overcooked. It was perfect. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Sure. Why don't you ever talk about yourself? Lila looked up. What do you mean? I mean, I've told you about Sarah, about Mia, about Creston. But I don't know anything about you, where you're from, if you have family, what you do when you're not working. I'm always working. That's not an answer. She set down her sandwich. I'm from a town called Millbrook, 2 hours south of here. My mom still lives there. I don't talk to her much. Why not? Because she thinks I sold out. Went corporate. Forgot where I came from. Did you? I don't know, maybe. Ethan leaned back. What about your dad? You said he worked in a factory. He did. Until he didn't. Lila's voice went flat. After he lost his job, he tried to start over. Applied to hundreds of places. Never got a call back. He started drinking. Then he stopped showing up for interviews. Then he just stopped trying. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. She looked at him. No, it doesn't. They sat there, two people carrying weight they didn't know how to put down. Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing? Lila asked. What do you mean? I mean we're corporate now. We're part of the system. The same system that destroyed my dad. That almost destroyed you. We're trying to fix it. Are we? Or are we just making it more efficient? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. They finished eating. Ethan paid. They walked back to the tower in silence. At the entrance, Lila stopped. Thank you. For what? For reminding me I'm human. You don't need reminding. I do, more than you think. She turned to go inside. Ethan caught her arm. Lila. She looked back. You're not your dad, and you're not the system. You're just someone trying to do the right thing. That's enough. Her eyes went bright. She nodded. Then she walked inside before he could see her cry. Ethan stood there for a moment, then he headed home. Mia was waiting for him when he walked through the door. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, or pretending to. You're late, she said. I know, sorry. Mrs. Alvarez said you forgot the pizza. Ethan swore under his breath. I'll order it now. It's okay. We made mac and cheese. We? Mrs. Alvarez appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. I figured you'd forget. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't make a habit of it. She grabbed her coat and left. Ethan sat down across from Mia. What are you working on? Math? Need help? No, I'm done. She closed her notebook. Daddy? Yeah? Are we moving? Ethan blinked. What? Jessica at school says when people get new jobs, they move to bigger houses. Who's Jessica? A girl in my class. She's annoying. Then why do you care what she says? Mia shrugged. I don't, but are we? Ethan looked around the apartment. The peeling paint, the radiator that clanked, the window that didn't lock. It was small. It was worn. But it was theirs. Do you want to move? He asked. Mia thought about it. I don't know. I like it here. Even though the radiator's loud? It's not that loud. Even though your window doesn't close right. I like the air. Ethan smiled. Okay, then we'll stay. But what if you want to move? I don't. But what if you do later? He reached across the table and took her hand. Then we'll talk about it. Together. Okay? Okay. She went back to her homework. Ethan watched her for a moment. Then he stood and went to make dinner. But the question stayed with him. Did he want to move? The truth was, he didn't know. Part of him wanted to stay in the apartment forever, keep everything exactly as it was. Freeze time so nothing else could change. But another part of him knew that wasn't living. That was hiding. And he'd been hiding long enough. A month later, Pembroke announced a company-wide restructuring, not layoffs, reorganization. Ethan's department expanded. He hired 3 analysts, built a team, implemented quarterly audits across every division. The work was exhausting, but it was good. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was building something that mattered. One afternoon, Caroline called him into her office. Sit, she said. Ethan sat. I'm stepping down, she said. Ethan's stomach dropped. What? End of the year. I'm taking a CEO position at another firm. Why? Because I've done everything I can do here, and I'm ready for something new. Who's replacing you? Caroline smiled. You? Ethan laughed. No. Yes. I've been here 6 months. And you've already proven yourself more than people who've been here 6 years. I'm not qualified. Neither was I when I started. You'll figure it out. Ethan shook his head. I can't. Why not? Because I have a daughter. And I can't do that job and be the father she needs. Caroline leaned back in her chair. Then don't take it, but don't say no because you're scared. I'm not scared. Yes, you are, and that's okay. But don't let fear make your decisions for you. She stood. You have 2 weeks to think about it. Let me know. Ethan walked out in a daze. He made it to his office and closed the door. Then he sat at his desk and stared at the wall. COO, Chief Operating Officer, the second highest position in the company. It was everything he'd worked for at Creston, everything he'd given up when Sarah died. And he had no idea if he wanted it. That night, he sat with Mia at the kitchen table while she colored a picture of a dragon. Again. She'd been obsessed with dragons for weeks. Daddy? She said without looking up. Yeah? If you had to choose between a really important job and spending time with me, which would you pick? Ethan's chest tightened. Where's this coming from? Jessica says her dad took a big job and now he's never home. Jessica talks a lot. I know, but would you? Ethan set down his coffee. I'd pick you. Every time. But what if the job was really, really important? It wouldn't matter. She looked up. Why not? Because you're more important. Mia studied him for a moment. Then she went back to coloring. Good, because I'd miss you if you were gone all the time. Ethan's throat closed. I'd miss you too, Bug. That night, after Mia was asleep, he called Lila. I need advice, he said. About what? Caroline offered me her job. There was a pause. And? And I don't know what to do. Why not? Because if I take it, I'll be working 80-hour weeks. I'll never see Mia. I'll turn into the kind of person I used to hate. Or you'll turn into the kind of person who changes the system from the inside. That's naive. Maybe, but it's also possible. Ethan was quiet. What does Mia think? Lila asked. I haven't told her. Why not? Because she's 6. So? She's smarter than half the people in this building. Ethan almost smiled. She asked me tonight if I'd choose a big job over spending time with her. What did you say? I said I'd pick her, every time. Then you already have your answer. He closed his eyes. Feels like I'm giving up. You're not giving up. You're choosing what matters. Those aren't the same thing. Yes, they are. Ethan sat there in the dark, phone pressed to his ear, listening to Lila breathe on the other end. What if I regret it? He asked. Then you regret it. But at least you'll regret it with Mia in your life. And if I take it and regret that, then you'll regret it alone. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. I'll think about it, he said. Don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait. She hung up. Ethan sat there, staring at his phone. Then he went to check on Mia. She was asleep, curled up under her blankets, the stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. He stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. Then he made his decision. The next morning, he walked into Caroline's office. I'm not taking it, he said. Caroline looked up. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I offered. You declined. That's how this works. I thought you'd try to convince me. I don't convince people to do things they don't want to do. Ethan sat down. It's not that I don't want it. Then what is it? I spent 3 years being absent. I can't do that to Mia again. Caroline nodded. That's fair. But I want to recommend someone. Who? Lila Monroe. Caroline raised an eyebrow. She's 30. So? I'm 32. She's never run operations. Neither had you when you started. Caroline smiled. Touché. She leaned back. Why her? Because she's the smartest person I know, and because she actually cares about doing the right thing. That's not always enough. It was for you. Caroline studied him for a moment, then she picked up her phone. I'll talk to her. Ethan stood. Thank you. Don't thank me. You just gave up a 7-figure job. I know. Do you regret it? He thought about Mia, about the night singing her to sleep, about the life he'd built from nothing. No, he said. I don't. Caroline nodded. Then you made the right choice? Lila got the offer 2 weeks later. She called Ethan at midnight, voice shaking. Did you do this? She asked. Do what? Recommend me for COO. Maybe. Ethan. You're welcome. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you do. What if I fail? Then you fail, but you won't. There was a long pause. Why did you turn it down? Because I'd rather be a good father than a great executive. Those aren't mutually exclusive. For me, they are. I've tried it both ways. This way's better. Lila was quiet for a moment. Thank you. Stop thanking me. Never. She hung up. Ethan smiled and went back to sleep. 3 months later, Lila became COO. She restructured operations, expanded oversight, implemented policies that protected workers instead of exploiting them. The first thing she did was reverse the remaining layoffs. All 9 employees who were scheduled to be cut were reassigned to other departments. Marcus Wells became head of physical security. Jennifer Tran moved into cybersecurity. The AI system was shelved indefinitely. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. And that was enough. One Saturday afternoon in June, Ethan took Mia to the park. They'd been coming here every weekend since he got the promotion. It was their routine, their time. Mia was on the swings. Ethan was pushing her, listening to her laugh. Higher, she shouted. Any higher and you'll fly away. Good, then I can see the clouds. He pushed her higher. She squealed with delight. When she finally got tired, they sat on a bench and shared a bag of chips. The sun was warm. The sky was clear. Daddy? Mia said. Yeah? Are you happy? The question surprised him. Why do you ask? Because you smile more now. I do? Yeah, you used to look sad all the time, but now you look happy. Ethan looked at her. This little girl with wild curls and gap teeth. This person who'd kept him alive when he wanted to give up. Yeah, Bug, he said. I'm happy. Good, me too. She went back to the swings. Ethan watched her play. And he realized something. He'd spent 3 years thinking survival was enough. That keeping his head down and getting by was all he deserved. But Lila had shown him something different. She'd shown him that sometimes survival wasn't the goal. Sometimes you had to fight. You had to stand up. You had to believe you were worth more than the world told you. And when you did, things changed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but they changed. That night, Mia asked him to sing the same song he'd been singing for 3 years, the same song that had started everything. He sat on the edge of her bed and started humming. Hush now, don't you cry. The stars are watching from the sky. Mia's eyes fluttered closed. Close your eyes and drift away. I'll be here when comes the day. He kept singing until she was asleep. Then he stood and walked to the doorway, but before he left, he looked back, and he whispered, Love you, Bug. 6 months later, Ethan got a call from a recruiter. A private equity firm in New York wanted to talk to him about a senior analyst position. Big salary, big title, big opportunity. He turned it down without hesitation. Not because he was scared, not because he didn't think he could do it, but because he'd learned something over the past year. Success wasn't about titles. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about climbing higher than everyone else. It was about building a life you didn't want to escape from. And for the first time in his life, Ethan had that. He had Mia. He had work that mattered. He had friends who believed in him. He had enough. And enough, he'd learned, was everything. 1 year after the board meeting that changed his life, Ethan stood in the atrium on the 3rd floor. It was midnight. The building was quiet. The city glowed through the windows. Lila found him there, holding 2 cups of terrible coffee. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Just thinking. About what? About how different everything is now. Lila handed him a cup. Different good or different bad? Different good. They sat on the bench. The same bench where they'd sat a dozen times before. Where they'd planned. Where they'd fought. Where they'd figured out how to survive. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't heard me that night? Ethan asked. All the time. And I think I would have pushed the layoffs through. 12 people would have lost their jobs, and I would have spent the rest of my life hating myself for it. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Ethan looked at her. You saved my life, Lila. No, I didn't. You saved your own. I just reminded you that you could. That's the same thing. It's not, but I'll let you believe it is. They sat in silence, drinking their coffee, watching the city breathe. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now we keep going, keep building, keep trying to do the right thing. And if we fail, then we fail together. Ethan smiled. I can live with that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Worse things have happened, Lila laughed. It was warm and real and unguarded. And in that moment, Ethan realized something. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living, and that made all the difference. 2 weeks later, Ethan signed a lease on a new apartment. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that fit a real table, windows that locked, a building that allowed pets. Mia cried when he told her they were moving. But I like our old apartment, she said. I know, but you'll like this one too. How do you know? Because it has a park across the street, and a big window in your room, and space for a dog. Her eyes went wide. A dog? Maybe. If you're good. She threw her arms around him. I'll be so good. He laughed and hugged her back. Moving day was chaos, boxes everywhere, furniture that didn't fit, a radiator that worked too well instead of not well enough. But it was theirs, and it felt like home. That night, after Mia was asleep, Ethan stood at the window and looked out at the city. It was the same view he'd seen from Pembroke Tower, the same lights, the same streets, but everything felt different now. He pulled out his phone and took a picture. Then he sent it to Lila. New view. She responded a minute later. Looks good. Feels good too. Proud of you. Stop saying that. Never. He smiled and put his phone away. Then he went to check on Mia one last time. She was asleep, curled up in her new room, the stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. The moonlight streamed through the window. She looked peaceful. Ethan stood there watching her breathe and thought about everything that had changed in the past year. He'd gone from security guard to VP, from barely surviving to actually living, from a man who'd given up to a man who'd learned how to fight. And none of it would have happened if Lila hadn't heard him singing that night. But that wasn't the real lesson. The real lesson was that sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones you expect. Sometimes they're strangers in a hallway who choose to care when they didn't have to. Sometimes they're the ones who remind you that you're worth fighting for. And sometimes that's all you need to start over. 3 months into the new apartment, Mia came home from school with a permission slip. What's this? Ethan asked. Field trip to the animal shelter. We get to play with dogs. When? Next Friday. He signed it without hesitation. You excited? Yeah, Jessica says her family got a dog from there. Jessica again? She's not as annoying anymore. What changed? Mia shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I did. Ethan smiled. Maybe you did. The following Friday, Mia came home with a photo of a brown and white mutt with floppy ears and sad eyes. This is Biscuit, she said. Can we adopt him? Ethan looked at the photo, then at Mia, then back at the photo. Let me think about it. That means no. That means maybe. 2 weeks later, they brought Biscuit home. The dog was a disaster. He chewed everything, barked at shadows, refused to be house-trained for the first month. But Mia loved him, and that was enough. One evening, Ethan sat on the couch with Biscuit's head in his lap while Mia did homework at the kitchen table. The apartment smelled like dog and pizza. The radiator clanked. The TV played quietly in the background. It was messy, it was chaotic, it was perfect. His phone buzzed. A text from Lila. Quarterly review next week. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. That's not reassuring. It's honest. Good enough. Coffee after? Always. He put his phone down and looked around the apartment. At Mia hunched over her math homework. At Biscuit drooling on his jeans. At the boxes they still hadn't unpacked piled in the corner. This was his life now. Not perfect. Not polished. Not what he'd imagined when he was 25 and thought he had it all figured out. But it was real. And it was his. And that was everything. The quarterly review went well. Ethan presented his findings to the board with confidence he didn't know he had. The recommendations were approved. The audit process was expanded. Afterward, Lila met him in the atrium with 2 cups of coffee. You killed it, she said. I didn't embarrass myself. Same thing. They sat on their bench. The city glowed through the windows. The building hummed around them. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Sure. Do you ever regret it? Taking this job? Becoming part of the system? Lila was quiet for a moment. Every day. Then why do you stay? Because regret means I still care. And as long as I care, there's a chance I can make it better. And if you can't? Then at least I tried. Ethan nodded. That's a good answer. It's the only answer I've got. They sat in silence, watching the city breathe. Thank you, Ethan said finally. For what? For hearing me that night. For not walking away. For fighting when I couldn't. Lila looked at him. You would have fought eventually. Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone. Me too. They finished their coffee and went back to work. And somewhere in the building below, a security guard made his rounds, checking doors, answering calls, keeping things safe. The work hadn't changed, but the people doing it had. And that, Ethan had learned, made all the difference. On Mia's 7th birthday, Ethan threw her a party at the park. 20 kids, too much cake, Biscuit running wild and stealing hot dogs off paper plates. It was chaos. It was loud. It was perfect. Leela showed up with a present wrapped in newspaper because she'd forgotten to buy wrapping paper. What is it? Mia asked. Open it and find out. Mia tore off the paper. Inside was a book. A Wrinkle in Time. My dad used to read this to me, Lila said. I thought you might like it. Mia's eyes went wide. Thank you. She threw her arms around Lila's waist. Lila looked startled, then she hugged her back. Ethan watched from across the park, holding a paper plate with a half-eaten piece of cake. And he thought about how far they'd all come. A year ago, he was a security guard counting down the hours until his shift ended. Lila was a corporate executive burning herself out in the name of efficiency. Mia was a kid who went to bed every night wondering if her dad was okay. Now they were something different, something better. Not perfect, but real. That night, after everyone had gone home and Mia was asleep, Ethan sat on the couch with Biscuit and opened his laptop. He pulled up the email from the recruiter, the one offering him a job in New York, the one he'd turned down 6 months ago. He read it one more time. Then he deleted it. Because he'd learned something over the past year. The best life wasn't the one that looked good on paper. It wasn't the one with the biggest title or the highest salary. It was the one where you woke up and didn't want to be anywhere else. And for the first time in his life, Ethan had that. He closed the laptop and looked around the apartment. At the dog asleep on the rug. At Mia's backpack by the door. At the dishes piled in the sink that he'd wash tomorrow. It wasn't much, but it was enough. And enough, he'd finally learned, was everything. 2 years after that night in the lobby, Ethan stood at the front of a conference room on the 40th floor. He was presenting the annual operational review to the full board. 15 executives. The CEO. Lila sitting in the back row with her arms crossed and a small smile on her face. He clicked through the slides, talked about risk mitigation, cost savings, process improvements. But halfway through, he stopped. Can I say something off script? He asked. Caroline raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. Ethan looked around the room. 2 years ago, I was a night security guard. I made $11 an hour. I sang lullabies to my daughter on a cheap phone while sitting in an empty lobby, and I thought that was all I deserved. The room was silent. Someone in this building heard me that night, and instead of walking past, she stopped. She listened. And she decided I was worth fighting for. He looked at Lila. She was staring at the table, jaw tight. I'm standing here today because someone believed I was more than my circumstances. And I think that's the lesson. We spend so much time optimizing systems and maximizing efficiency that we forget the people inside them. We forget that everyone in this building has a story, a reason they're here, a life outside these walls. He clicked to the last slide. It was blank except for one line. People aren't problems to solve, they're potential to unlock. That's all I've got, Ethan said. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Caroline started clapping. The rest of the board joined in. Ethan walked out of the room, heart pounding. Lila caught up with him in the hallway. That was reckless, she said. I know. And completely off-brand for a quarterly review. I know. And probably the best thing anyone said in that room in 10 years. Ethan looked at her. Yeah? Yeah. They stood there in the hallway, two people who'd saved each other without meaning to. Thank you, Ethan said. For what? For hearing me. You already thanked me for that. I know, but I'm going to keep doing it until you accept it. Lila smiled. Then you're going to be thanking me for a long time. I'm okay with that. They walked to the elevator together, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not because the job was perfect, not because his life was easy, but because he'd stopped running from himself, and he'd started building something real. That night, he picked Mia up from school. They went to the park. They threw a ball for Biscuit until the sun started to set. Daddy? Mia said. Yeah? I'm glad we moved. Me too, Bug. And I'm glad we got Biscuit, even though he chews everything? Especially because he chews everything. Ethan laughed. They walked home through the Chicago streets as the city lit up around them, past the corner store where they bought milk, past the diner where he and Lila had eaten grilled cheese, past Pembroke Tower, rising 42 stories into the sky. Ethan looked up at the building, at the lights glowing in the windows, at the place where his life had changed, and he smiled, because he'd learned something in the past 2 years. You don't need a perfect life to be happy, you just need a real one. And that's exactly what he had.